Babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. What's up? How's everybody doing today? What's up, Callow?
Good, good. Enjoyed a day off yesterday. Went to the Nats game.
Yeah, you actually went to the Nationals game, yeah?
I went to two of the three against the Dodgers. It was
Mm-hmm.
a nice little series. I love seeing this is actually full disclosure. Like I love seeking out Otani. I think I've seen him now 10 to 12 times in
Yeah.
his career, and he's probably my favorite player to watch. So I wanted to go to a couple games of this series.
I do have a hankering to go see Soto this year. So when the Mets roll into town, I do. I don't know why. This is the first time. I wouldn't have. I didn't really care to see him in a Padres uniform for some reason, other than because I was just mad. I was just mad he was wearing that uniform. I really didn't want to see him in a Yankees uniform because that just felt like Death Star. He'd been sucked into the vortex of you're one of the specials, therefore you play in this uniform. But now that he's going to be with the Mets forever, there is a part of me that actually wants to go see him this year. So I'll probably go check one of those out this year.
I did see him in the previous two teams, so I'll see him again at some point.
Yeah.
I saw him last year in the Yankees uniform. That was weird. I was like, not this one. I was like, I don't like this one. Let's not do this one long term. And
Yeah.
he's a Met, whatever. I mean, it is.
I agree. All right, let's get into some of the football stuff going on. One local, one national, and this is just, I hate doing this, but I'm going to do it because I don't know what it means, and I'm willing to be open minded to. This is cryptic and weird, and the draft is coming up, and weird things happen around the draft. But Steelers fans are freaked because TJ Watt did an Instagram post, and he didn't write anything, and he just did the peace sign. And, most of the time, like you just want to try to not get too into that. And who knows what it means? Like nobody knows what it means. However, when you're 2 weeks away from the draft, you do it in your uniform. That's all you show. He's not someone who's been very public anyway in general. So if there was something going on, you wouldn't know about it. And oh, by the way, he's in the last year of his contract, and he is now currently scheduled to make half of what Myles Garrett is making. Put more than 2 and 2 together and you get 28, right? So I hate being so overly speculative, but I think that there's at least a reason to think there's some speculation worth looking at here. And so I would just say this: forget Trey Hendrickson. I want that guy. If the Steelers are going, we're just moving on, we're not going to pay him $40 million a year because you got to pay him $40 million a year now. Like, we can argue what Hendricks can get, and that's what the problem is, I think, with the Bengals. There's no argument what he gets. He gets what Garrett gets. And so I don't know that that's on our radar at all, but it's on somebody's radar, and I understand why the Steelers fans should be freaking out, and I do wonder, are the Steelers going to walk away from him at 30 with the price point now at a spot that's very difficult?
Well, and especially in an organization that is not willing to pay every single one of these players what they're usually worth, right? Like the Steelers haven't hesitated to pay guys like him, but it's usually a little bit like pulling teeth, right? It's never just like handed to those guys willy-nilly. And I'm sure TJ Watt's also going, look, man, if you're not going to pay me and I'm making half as much as Myles Garrett is, don't you want to trade me for some value too? Like there could be a little bit of push and pull here where he's going, don't you want to get something for me? Because if you're not going to re-sign me, I'm not going to play for you after next year too. There could be that side of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, like he's not a very, like when Burrow went public, like he's not a very public person with complaints. Yeah. Hendrickson going public. I mean, he's not a very public person. Chase had been public about it. Ayuk had been public about it. Watt's not public about it either. But I would think in this case, and I'm always one of those, you sign the contract, live up to it. In this case, he should not be making half of anybody. So it's the last year of his deal. He has every right to go to them and go, we're altering this now. Like we're altering it now. We can figure out how it works in your cap, but there's no chance on earth that I'm showing up in training camp making half of what the top tier defensive lineman makes because I'm just as good as him. And you know that. And if you try to make me play under this, there's no chance on earth I would ever re-sign with you again. So I think you're right. I think it gets to the point where you go, make a move. You're either giving me the money or make a move. And then secondarily, I would say this too. Aaron Rodgers hasn't signed there. I know the owner said they feel like it's going in that direction. Maybe the Steelers are waiting to get through the draft to see if they draft somebody or if they don't, because maybe there is a quarterback they like, but they don't want to give up everything to get them. Like, they're not going to get to number one, but maybe there's a quarterback they like that they think might get to them at a certain point in the draft. And if that person doesn't, well, then they'll just turn to Aaron Rodgers, or maybe they'll make that draft pick and Rodgers will decide whether he wants to play for them, one or the other. Like, something's holding that up. Either way, if you're TJ Watt, aren't you looking at that and going, we don't even have a quarterback here, guys? Like, you want me to sign long-term with you? I don't even know what your plan is at this point. And he might be saying but for real, Myles Garrett stuff is, I want to win. Like, I really want to win. And I know we've won a lot, but we're not winning without a quarterback, especially in our division. Like, that's just not happening, and we know it.
I think you have to wonder, too, is TJ also talking with JJ Watt? Like, JJ Watt was in Houston for a million years. They never really had a great quarterback until Deshaun. That was basically it. And
they made the playoffs a lot, actually. They made the playoffs with Matt Schaub a lot.
They did, but they made the playoffs. But we all know how good their quarterbacks were through those years. They weren't good. They were also sneaking in some years with, your boy Davies Mills and, a couple of the other names like Savage and some of those names that they would sneak in because that division was so bad. And then what did JJ Watt do? He went and signed with the Cardinals.
Yes. Like post Peyton Manning, that was among the consistently weakest divisions. I mean, go look at what Tennessee was doing with Tannehill as their quarterback. I don't want to disparage him, but like, nobody's calling him a top 10, top 5 quarterback. Right. And yet every single year they were at times dominant, and partially because they were killing that division throughout the course of the year.
Exactly. So I wonder here too, did he talk to JJ and JJ went like, you got to do something difficult here if you want to go to a contender, because it doesn't look like the Steelers are doing it. And granted, he's given the Steelers how many years to try to figure out the situation behind Big Ben, leaving? They haven't. I mean, that's where I think this lands here is, I think TJ wants to win, and maybe he's taking advice from his brother too of going, well, you're going to have to do something difficult if that's what you want to actually do.
Yes. Now, Washington has found a way to have big salaries on their team, but with an asterisk next to all of them. Debo's is 1 year, right? They gave Cosme money. It's the first one they gave money to. I think they're going to do something with McLaurin. It hasn't happened yet, but I think they're going to. They got Tunsil, but they have him in what is really a very affordable deal for a couple of years. We'll see how long that lasts. Like, they got Lattimore, but they actually have him at a semi-affordable number without the big number outlay. So I don't think they're quote unquote allergic to doing things like this. But if they were to go try to acquire someone like this, or Hendrickson for that matter, it would be the first test of, okay, are you willing to write the big check up front, the really big check up front? And they've done it with Cosme. That's the only one they've done it with. I can't think of anyone else that would have warranted them doing this. But when they got around in free agency this year, again, I'll go back to who on that list should they have done that with? I didn't see one person. I don't think you give Milton Williams that if you're the Commanders. I don't think you give Josh Sweat that. No offense to them. I think they're very good players, and I think they'll be very good players for their new teams. But I didn't look at them personally and go, that's what the Commanders have to do. This one or Hendrickson, if they were to acquire him, is different. This is the one where you have to write the big check to them. And we don't know how allergic they are to doing something like that. But this is the one, if that means anything, and just add it up with the Steelers don't have a quarterback. So they're kind of directionless a little bit here. They're waiting out Rodgers. They may get Rodgers. If not, they go with a young quarterback. That young quarterback's not going to be walking in the league with the hype of Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams or Drake May. It's not going to be that person because they're not getting Cam Ward. They've been just above 500. They make the playoffs. They win a lot, but they're just above 500. They're getting just a little bit older. And they probably don't want to pay him at 30, 40 plus million a year because he, unlike Hendrickson, who has a right to ask for a lot of money, could ask for the most. He's the defensive player of the year. He could easily ask for the most. And so this one adds up to he might be available. Like, he might really be available. And if he is, would Washington want to give up what it takes to get him? And secondarily, would they want to pay that price? And in both cases, I'm not sure, and I think maybe no, but I don't know. We know the biggest void on this team right now, as it stands, is the position he plays, right? Do you want to pay top-tier dollar and pay a price in the draft to get it? I don't know.
I mean, I think when we're looking at that position and this year's draft, I'd be okay with moving a lot of draft picks from this year to get him. I keep, kind of harping on it. I don't like this year's draft, like in terms of the guys that they need and what is available there. And so I'd be willing to move some picks from this year's draft. And I know you're going to throw something in from next year. I guess it's really up to Adam Peters. How do you want to keep building this roster year to year? Because it's going to keep getting turned over more and more the more draft picks you don't have, right? So what is it? They have 5 picks coming up in the draft, right?
They have 5 in this draft.
They already are down to 6 next year because they traded in the Tunsil, or 4-5 already.
I believe it's 5 unless they acquired something else that I don't remember. But 2 of the picks that were traded for Tunsil go to Houston next year.
Yeah.
Debo's deal is done. It was 1 pick and it's this year's draft.
Exactly. So like you are already working with the cupboard being, not ransacked, but like there's some pieces missing essentially. Adam Peters, come on down. How do you want to build this roster moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I again, like, on its face, if I said to you, would you give up number 29 for TJ Watt? And my immediate reaction is I would.
Sure.
In fact, I don't even actually think that's a hard decision, especially like, okay, so you went and got Laramie Tunsil. You went and got Debo Samuel. You think you could win right now. You have every reason to believe you think you can win right now. You just went to the NFC Championship game with an above average to average roster, but a superstar quarterback and a new culture. And so you looked at that and you went, we can win right now. You have every reason to believe you can win right now, that the window is open. You need a superstar on your defense. Like, that's reality. So, and if you are going to sign him, it is going to be for multiple years. It's not like you're not going to sign him and he's going to be, that's not a 1-year deal. Like, you actually have to give him a new contract. There's no way around that. So you're giving him a 3, 4, 5-year deal, even though he's 30. I mean, this is the one where if he's truly available and they want 29, because we're sitting here talking about taking an edge rusher at 29. It's one of the most logical positions that they would take, edge rusher. The chances of that person being him are slim to none. Like, that person might end up being really, really good or might have a really good career. They're not going to be him. So I don't know. Like, this is the one. Hendrickson's price point started to go to a point, and the payment that the Bengals at least reportedly wanted made me uncomfortable with it. Like, I think he's a really, really good player, but like, not unlike Tunsil or Debo, they're not giving up a ton, at least money wise, cap room wise, to make those things happen. And in Debo's case, they're not even giving up really major draft assets to make it happen. They did with Tunsil. Like, they paid a price to acquire him. They currently aren't on the hook for money that is outrageous or cap prohibitive at any point. That probably is going to change come next year. They're going to make a decision about him. This would be the first one where you go, listen, our window's open. We need somebody who does what he does. Let's pay the price and make it happen on both ends of it. And I could make an argument that this is the first person I've seen, heard, or Garrett for that matter, Myles Garrett, or him, where you go, this guy changes everything. I mean, like Tunsil and Debo. Tunsil changes everything, I think, on offense, and I hope Debo does as well. But I think Tunsil does. That's why I called that trickle down effect. That was an enormous, enormous deal for so many reasons for them. This guy changes everything on defense. You want to have the ball is life, the turnover people, you've got to find somebody who's going to get to the quarterback. No one, except maybe Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, do it better than him. So I would argue is real, and that we're looking at a peace sign he put on Instagram as his sign of saying, I don't think it's going to work out here, guys. The draft is coming up in a couple of weeks. I think they're probably going to move me. We've had a lot of discussions. They don't want to give me $40 million a year, and I have every right to ask for it. I'm in the last year of my deal. They might need to reset a little bit anyway, because I'm going, we don't have a quarterback. We don't have a lot of things on this team. We've got to kind of reset this a little bit. I don't know. Like, this one, that was, and it could also be that he was on vacation and just said peace to wherever he was in Mallorca. Like, it could be literally anything. But this is the first one that I saw this, and this makes too much sense. Like, if you're going to take a shot and give up something else and pay somebody on the outside, this person fits that. I mean, just it's every team, way more to me than Hendrickson does, like way more than him.
Well, this one also, it goes in the same light as the Myles Garrett move too, as in like, you make that move, nobody's complaining about it. Everybody's praising you for it. You don't have to really worry about the production. I think Hendrickson, you do a little bit. Like, he'd be an upgrade here, but I don't know how much we're getting out of him in 4 years, right? Like, he's not the best at his position. He's very good, but I don't know what that price you're going to pay to get him is. Whatever price you're going to pay to get Watt will be worth it. I guess is really like what this boils down to. He's going to be that good. He has won defensive MVP before. Like, whatever you give up for him will be completely worth it. You don't have to worry about it with him.
This is the difference between what I think is really, really, really good to great. Like, this is the same thing I think I said last year. I'm like, I really like Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a really good player. I do not think he's Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. And so therefore I don't want to move heaven and earth to make it happen to get him here, even if we need somebody like this and pay the price to do it. I feel the same way about Hendrickson. I like him. I think he's a really, really good player. He's not him. He's not Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa. He's not Micah Parsons. He's not that. This guy's one of those guys. So if you are going to make an exception, this is the one. And again, like, he may come out today and go, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like, I just said peace to some restaurant that closed that I liked. Like, it could be anything, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be saying peace because he was vacationing with JJ.
That's
or
right.
Something like that. Like, it could be something as simple as that,
It could be. All right. Let's see. Other news around here is this. Eric Flack, who's been all over the stadium updates and keeping track of that for WUSA 9, put an RFK update on Twitter yesterday, and he said this. Sources say stadium discussions between the district and the Commanders continue to progress while DC waits for budget fix from Congress. I didn't realize that was still out there. I thought that had already passed and that was it. It says no deal would be announced until after this bill passes, restoring the DC budget, which likely won't happen until the end of April at the earliest. The Commanders continue to negotiate with the mayor's office while updating council members, as Mayor Bowser would be the one to agree to terms, but the council still has to approve the agreement. Something around $500+ million is in line with what others got in the past, with DC investment focused on the infrastructure. You'll recall that Ted Leonsis came to a deal with the district government to stay in Washington and not move out to Virginia. And the deal ended up being somewhere in that neighborhood of $500 million for what they're calling renovations and infrastructure in and around the stadium. A lot more is going to go into it from the Leonsis family and their investors to build what all the images that they've shown of what Capitol Run Arena is going to become over the next, whatever it is, 3-5 years. I can't remember what the timeline was. In this case, I didn't realize that there was a congressional part of this. Like, they had already passed the part that was important. They've given the district government the ability to do what they want with the land. I forgot about this part. The federal government determines the DC budget. So I didn't realize that the DC budget is still hanging in the balance, and considering everything that's going on financially in this country right now, this is probably the wrong time to ask Congress about what the deal is with that, because of how topsy-turvy everything has been with our stock market, with our bond market, with all the tariffs on, tariffs off, the trade war situations. I think a lot of uncertainty in the corporate world right now. So it's not that, they can't do a million things at once. They can. They're Congress. But I would bet that today's the wrong day to ask about what's actually going on with this, because on the priority list of what I would just describe is stabilization of the global financial markets and specifically our markets, I'm going to go with the DC budget being passed to whatever degree it gets passed is not that high on the list. And maybe because news cycles change every day, maybe next week we could have this. And so we'll have to continue to be patient here. But I will also say this, and I felt this way for a while now. It's been so quiet about this. There has not been a lot of pushback from anybody since that bill passed in Congress at the end of last year that allowed for this to even get the ball rolling this way. I believe that means that the majority people are on board with this happening. And the question is, will they come up with a financial arrangement that the team, the league, and the city are all very happy with? But typically, when you hear nothing, it means it's happening. So I think like Eric, who's just on top of it, got an update of here's why it hasn't happened yet, is what I read from reading this. The reason why this hasn't happened yet is because Congress hasn't done something we need it to do, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. And if you read those tweets, it's like the second they can get this reconciled, it is happening.
No, it sounded very like this is where we are at in the process. There's no danger of it happening or not happening either way. Like this is just where we are in the step-by-step process on it, like the cost and all of that stuff too. Like they might have to just basically make a statement of like, here's what it will cost or what we can spend with whatever you give us at this moment in time. And if certain tariffs go into place or certain things in the budget blow up, this might get more expensive. Like that's the only thing I could really see them kind of like changing on this. Other than that, this is business as normal. Like there's no good or bad time to start building a stadium. So like, I think that's where that's like where we've settled on here.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like it's probably not the right time to be asking for this money and seeing where it's at. But at the same time, there's no good or bad time to ask for something as big as that.
No, there's not. And Congress will move at its own pace. We've learned this. We've been trying to get this done for 30 years. So it's not like they'll move at their own pace, and the DC government will get their budget put in front of them. I think I would guess the only thing that like complicates this is if it's different than what they expected, especially on a much lower end, then they have to think about how are they going to get this done. The good news is, I think either way, that whenever the budget gets put in front of them, it's so clear that the league wants this to happen, and specifically Roger Goodell wants this to happen. It's the ownership group that we have now is far more flexible than the average old investor group because they're a hedge fund. Like all of these people are extraordinarily wealthy, but the ownership group, which is headed by Josh Harris, what they've done for a living is raise money. They are a hedge fund and they're an investment group. And this is, yes, very family run and very personal to Josh Harris, Mark Ein, Mitchell Rails, the people who are, the majority portion ownership of this, who are from here, love this, want this to be great, have heartstrings pulling at them to go back to hallowed ground, be back at RFK, and bring back the good old days in every way possible. But like the part that matters in turning to make this happen is their strength, which is they raise money. Like they're not asking this family to dip into their coffers to make this. This isn't the Bengals. Like, I don't know if you saw what happened the other day, but the president of the team more than insinuated, and I think it was just a threat, but she said to the public leaders in Ohio, after 2026, we're free to go wherever we want. And like, that's not what's happening here. This group says, how do we get this done? And then they run the math tables and figure it out. And we put the tariffs out there and we figure out how to raise the money and we find the investment group to make it happen. So it's been very quiet. I don't hear a lot of public political pushback to it. I'm a touch surprised by that because I think it's not just the mayor who's publicly been on board. Clearly, a lot of the council members must be too, because I don't hear, they're the ones that would stand in the way publicly of making this happen. And I don't hear anything from them. So that's the good news. If you want this back at RFK, and I think most of us do, it sounds like it's happening. It's just, we're getting through the motions of resolving budgets and all the things that, it makes you and forces you to be patient because there's nothing you can do about it until it's all done.
I think the other side of this too is this investment group has been prepared for this, right? Like they put in all those upgrades in Landover to basically make sure that they're good for the long haul. Excuse me one sec. Had to sneeze there. Look at what they're doing with Landover and investing in the stadium. Like they are actually preparing for this to be for a little bit longer than we maybe think it's going to be. Or, hey, if something does fall through, that stadium is still good to go for a couple more years longer than we want it to be, right? Like, I think they have thought about every kind of step of the process here, including staying where they're at for a little bit while longer if something were to get messed up. I'm not anticipating that to happen, but I think it's just a track record thing of these guys know what they're doing every step of the way. Like that's what I'm getting at here is they are prepared for any outcome essentially to happen, including sticking around a little bit longer in Landover if they have to. And the fact that they even went that far to upgrade, like put in the amount of money of upgrades in that stadium, knowing it's going to get torn down in the next decade is pretty crazy. And it tells me everything I need to know about the group moving forward. They know how to handle this situation up and down.
All right, last thing from the NFL. I'm going to give you a name. Nobody knows this name. His name is Howard Katz. He's retiring. Howard Katz is the person you either loved or hated in about a month or by the end of the year, because Howard Katz for the last 20 years is the person that made the NFL schedule, or at least spearheaded it. Obviously, he wasn't the only person. He's the person that received all of the lobbying from every team about what they wanted in the schedule, what they didn't want in the schedule. He's the one that either made them happy or didn't. When it comes out and we go, we're playing 4 teams that are coming off of a bye. How in the world did that possibly happen? Or I don't know. Now we're playing Thursday night and the other team hasn't played since their bye. Like, how does that make any sense? Or, oh my God, we have to play this road game, then play that road game, then play this home game, and then go back across the country to play that road game. Or you get like what Washington had a year ago, which honestly is part of the story here. Remember how little they actually traveled for a period of time in the middle of the year? And when they got out of what was, and I felt this way from the get-go last year, I went, 4 of their first 6 are on the road. One of them is at Cincinnati, and then a short week at Arizona. If they survive that, if they're, say, 3-3, they were 4-2. If you were 3-3, you're in really good shape because look how the schedule lined up. It's not that he did them a favor, but he kind of did. Not purposefully, because once they got through that, they didn't travel any farther than New York for a 2-month period. They had mostly home games, and all the road games were right there. It was Philadelphia, New York. It was all right there, and it's set up for them to have this. So for those of you who loved at times Howard Katz, which I did a year ago, or hated him, because how many times in previous years I went, how many teams do we have to play off their bye? Like, how many times that have to happen? He is now leaving this position, and he is no longer you're the person you scorn or the person you love.
I just wonder who's next, or are we just, typing this into Chat GPT? Like who's going to be the next one to make this now?
I agree. If there was ever something the NFL could do that would automate it, it would be this and go figure this out for us. And the craziest part is it would do it in 22 seconds.
Correct. Yeah. Not only would it do it, you could tell it, these are the games with the most priority. Make sure there's only a certain amount of them each week. Like, it's probably actually not that hard to figure out. The hardest thing to figure out actually, and it always has been if there are major events in a city or if the stadium is taken up that day. Most of the time it's not, though. Like the NFL teams, block a lot of dates out on the calendar, but you get places like Jerry World that do extra events and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's the hardest part to really lay down. For the most part, these guys' venues are all wide open. So, I mean, it actually...
You just have to give the algorithm rules and say, this weekend, this stadium is not available. You cannot give a team more than 3 straight road games ever. Like, you just have to give it rules. Right. And once you do that, and you have to say the last game of the season will be a division game for everybody. Once you set the rules, it probably can spit the thing out, and then it would take minor tweaks.
Correct.
You could do this in a day, actually, with ChatGPT.
Most likely. And I mean, like I said, you just give it different priorities and the special days too. Like we didn't really talk about it, but like the Chiefs are advocating, they want to be the Christmas Day team now. You have to spit that out. That's basically it. So,
yep. All right, let me take a quick break. Brad, what's the show? ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Welcome back. It's been a wild week for the ye old Washington Capitals, who over the weekend, of course, made history. Alex Ovechkin became the greatest goal scorer of all time, or at least, maybe that's the wrong way to put it, most prolific goal scorer of all time. He has scored more goals than anyone ever. And if we're having a beauty contest, then we're having a beauty contest, and people will say one guy did it one way and the other guy did it the other way. I don't care. Either way, That's behind us. And this is the first game that they have, and it's going to be on home ice. And it's a big one, actually. It's Carolina, who they lost to. Carolina is one of the few reasonable teams that could actually catch them to make the Capitals not the 1 seed, whether we think that matters. So there's a few things to talk about here as they return home tonight. One, not unlike, I think, the last couple of games, the Blackhawks game where everybody showed up in anticipation of, you know what? And we did this last week where I was like, you know what? Him getting a hat trick isn't unreasonable. And he could have, if he wanted to get the empty net goal, he probably could have had at least an opportunity to do it. And then, of course, Sunday, where it was Caps Palooza there in New York because they're waiting to see a record. It happens. Tonight's different because it's behind him now. If he scores, great. And if he doesn't score, fine. But it's going to be all pomp and circumstance again. So I do wonder, how are they emotionally? What's the mood like? Is it all just kind of celebratory? Is the whole thing really not about the game, but just kind of celebrating him? I'll be interested to see what tonight feels like in the arena.
Yeah. Full disclosure too, Carolina cannot catch them. The Caps clinched the division on Monday when Carolina lost. So that race is done. So there's even a little bit more, there's less juice out of the sales than normal here, where Carolina literally doesn't have a shot at catching them. So Caps clinched the division on an off day. Now you have the Ovechkin pomp and circumstance going down as well. I'm with you. I want to see how they put this behind it. But I also think so what we're going to get here too is our first real look at what they're going to look at or look like in the playoffs too. How does Carberry tweak the lines? You and I have talked about this. What does Ovechkin's ice time start to look at like right now? Like, I think it could be down a little bit. Like, you're not kind of forcing him out there. And look, they've been in first place, like I said, almost the entire year. You warrant putting Ovi out there for a while. But I think Ovi's going to probably start hovering around that 15-minute mark, maybe a little bit less, starting tonight. And was there any emotional carryover from the last Carolina game where they were all beating the hell out of each other at the end of the game? Is there any of that happening? Because, oh, by the way, when that was happening, you had, Tom Wilson saying no one can protect you, yelling at people across the bench. You got Ryan Leonard, who's going to enter the fray now as well. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of settles out. I actually don't anticipate a lot of it happening. I think with the Caps winning the division and the Hurricanes being where they're at right now, I anticipate this being an actual kind of just normal game after, I don't know, maybe the first period after all the pomp and circumstances are over with.
So now that I'm looking at the standings, it looks like Toronto's the only team that could actually catch them for the 1 seed.
Yeah.
But they would need the Caps to really bottom out. It looks like the Caps, if they were to win 1 game over the next 5, that would all but secure it. In fact, might, because Toronto's played 1 more game than they only have 4 left. They have 100 points. They're 7 back. They need the Caps to lose out, it looks like. So
yeah, literally,
the 1 seed looks like it is going to happen one way or the other. Aren't they playing Columbus once or twice over the next week?
Columbus back-to-back, home and home on Saturday and Sunday. So, like,
well, then this is going to get interesting of how they handle if they do clinch and how soon they actually clinch the 1 seed. How do they deal with their players? Do they rest them? Like, are they slow rolling Logan Thompson back? Are they going to be very, very careful with Protas? Like, what are they going to do here down the stretch? Are they going to, because, I hate the idea of like getting out of whatever rhythm they have, but you also want to be very careful. And I guess that starts tonight too.
I think Thompson needs to start once before the playoffs, hopefully. I don't know when he's going to be back. Protas was, they didn't say week to week, but it feels like he's week to week. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the playoffs. Allegedly, it was a skate cut on his foot. So I don't really know what the healing factor is on that one. So we'll see. I think it's different with a skater and a goalie. I think if you have a forward or a defenseman, they can slot right into the lineup during the playoffs. They'll be okay. A goalie, I'd like to see them get a start before. So I'm with you. Like, let's see what they do here. I think Thompson hopefully would get a game or 2 before, especially next week too, because they have a couple more games. I think Tuesday and Thursday as well. So we'll see.
And what is it right now? It looks like Montreal right now would be the first round opponent, if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, look, you and I talked about the other day, funny enough, what was like the worst loss in the Ovechkin era? It was against Montreal in 2010 when Yaroslav Halak came in and they came back and won the series in 7 games. So it's the 15th anniversary of that series coming up. I don't get the best feeling about it, but that Montreal team is not that Montreal team either. So we'll see.
The Capitals were up 3-1. They had the best record in the NHL. They had 120 something points. They won the President's Trophy. They were up 3-1. And two of the last three that they lost were 2-1 scores.
Yep.
They were the highest, most prolific scoring team, and they went dead in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Hockey's a weird sport. Like the upsets occur every single year. What, a couple of years ago, Boston had the best regular season ever and went out in the first round. Like you don't know.
The other side of this too with the Caps that I like is they're not like that Caps team where they're this high. They're just blowing you out every night. Their goal differential is actually really good in terms of what they give up and what they score. They're a much better defensive team than those other Ovechkin era teams. So that's why I'm not really too worried about this first round matchup.
So this is going to be one of the great home moments in the regular season where where everyone gets to celebrate Ovi. I loved what he did with the school kids that showed up. I thought that was really great. Cool. Where they brought in 895 elementary school kids to come to practice, and then the team forced him to go do the slide across the ice because they all cheered him. I thought that was really cool what they did. I'm sure tonight's going to be really great. They're going to honor him, I'm sure, in a number of ways. So I think it's going to be really, really unique atmosphere in the arena. So for those of you, Archer told me, what was it? He told me a funny story actually the other day. He went to a collectible shop. He likes cards and collectibles. And he was at a collectible shop in the middle of the afternoon when Ovi scored the goal to break the record. And he told me, he said, the guy at the register had this look of despair on his face after it happened, because he then told him that he had paid a large sum of money to get a ticket to the Carolina game in the hopes of being there for the record break. And, that didn't happen. But I'm like, you know what? This is the first home game since. He could easily score tonight too. It breaks the record again. Sure. And either way, you're going to be part of an extremely unique situation. It's the first home game since he did it. So what's the crowd going to be like? It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I jokingly, during the second period before he scored, went on and looked, and the get-in price was $800. Easily the most expensive ticket I've seen at Cap One for a regular season game in a long time. I'm with you. You're going to be in the building for the real celebration of all of this. Is Gretzky going to be there? No. Is he going to score? Maybe if he does, then all of a sudden, 895 is completely different, right? You get to see 896. So I would never regret that. And in fact, if I was buying that ticket, I would make sure that's kind of part of the reason I was buying it too. If he breaks it, they're going to do all this crazy stuff anyways. So I would never be disappointed of going, even if I bought it anyways.
No. I think this is special either way. And I think it's really cool. All right. I do think it's ironic though, that we're having this night, which is an all-time night downtown, when last night the Wizards played what was their last home game of one of the worst seasons they've ever had. And this one was done on purpose with the hopes that Cooper Flagg ends up on their team next in about 2 months. That's what they're hoping is going to happen here. We'll see. They have locked up one of the highest percentages that you can have to get the number one pick. It still is only 14%. So actually the odds are against you actually getting it. But they will have a very high pick. This is a very deep draft. But there's only one Cooper Flagg. So if you're hoping and you think that he's the truth, then, we still need a little bit of luck. Last night though was it. Thank God it's over. And I've said this before, and this is hard for me to say this because I love our team so much. I was so tuned out on them this year. Their hole in the summer, watch this because you're going to see glimpses of the future, was not a sell for me. And no offense to the players on this team, but I knew what the score was. And then as things went along, you guys decided to go into a tank mode that is it's even new I think for the NBA, to the point of putting people out there for 5-10 minutes and then pulling them out. I was just out, guys. I'm glad this is over. Let's reconnect in the summer after the lottery happens.
I will say this. There has to be at least a glimmer of hope that they were putting out all of those young guys on the court and they had to start pulling them because they were too good. There is to me, you're asking these guys to tank or you're giving them court time and all of a sudden they were a little too good for you. I'll take that as a victory. I knew it was going to be a bad season, but the fact that they had just nothing but young guys and then Chris Middleton out there, I'll take it. And I've said this to you over and over again this season. The biggest thing that pissed me off about the Wizards for so many years was they middled. They didn't pick a direction, or they tried to tell me that Bradley Beal and Porzingis and Kuzma were the next big three. And we all know they're not the next big three. Once again, I don't want to give them credit for tanking, but I give them credit for just telling me they're finally picking that direction. And I have no criticisms over here on what they did this season.
One more thing on the NBA. I don't know if you've seen this video. It's on Twitter somewhere, but the ownership group of the Nuggets did do an interview. And it was the son of the owner, Stan Kroenke, who I guess, is either president of basketball operations or something, obviously, but he is a representation of the ownership. Sat down with somebody with the team and was asked very flat, very open-ended, why did you do this questions with Mike Malone and Calvin Booth being fired 3 games before the playoffs after they'd won a championship just a couple of years ago. And, oh, by the way, are definitively going to be in the playoffs again. And I will say this, for unusual, risky decisions, if you listen to this, it actually makes a lot of sense without being very, specific about what was going on. It was, if you listen to this person, I thought it was reasonable. He openly said things had gone so bad, we knew we were making a change at the end of the year. So we just decided we have an MVP on our team. We know we're better than the way we've played. We're just going to take a shot to try to infuse some enthusiasm and shock this thing back to life and try to salvage this season. And from that perspective, if you heard him say all this, because I watched it, it was like a 3-minute clip. I went, you know what? Obviously none of us know what was going on there. Obviously it had gotten bad. That coach had been there for 10 years. So it's not like they're not a stable organization and do things like this. They don't trade away their stars. They're not a team that has shown any kind of level of crazy pants. They actually are very stable. So I was willing to hear it out. And after hearing it out, I went, you know what? If I was a fan of the team, I would trust the ownership here. They have actually shown patience. They have actually shown the ability to build a championship team. They've done nothing flippant since. They have stuck by this head coach for a decade, which is a lifetime in the NBA. They decided the time was now. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And this is really rare when you do something as crazy as what seems like what they did. I actually, after hearing it, went, you know what? I trust these guys.
I would say I trust them, but I do appreciate what they're doing for this season specifically, because how many times have we seen it in any sport where you see it barreling down the wrong way, where you see, we all know how this is going to end, and they just decide to let the train roll off of the tracks. I give them all the credit in the world to go, you know what? We don't want to waste a season with our MVP. Let's just try to get it done here. And I will give him that. Like I said, I don't know if I trust him, but I do like that you're not throwing away a season, because we see it so many times. Like, you and I talked pretty much about certain Capitals teams where we're like, Todd Reardon, we know that it's not going to work with that guy. And they went through that season and they lost in the playoffs and they get rid of him anyways, right? And then they hire Peter Laviolette. Then the second or third year of Laviolette, we're going, we know it's really not going to happen there. And Ted never fired a coach there either, where you could have maybe jump-started the team a little bit had you brought up an interim head coach or something like that. So I appreciate this. I think, does it work? I doubt it. But at the same time, try something. That's what I've landed on here. I wish more teams would do this, especially at the end of a season.
I agree. All right, be right back. Brad Bush Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, last thing today. Stephen A. Smith does indeed want to be the president of the United States. Said on the record the other day that he needs to seriously look into it, which is no shock. He's been going on Sean Hannity. He has been talking about politics. He has gotten into some political spaces where I think recently one of those people that did the undercover taping of the former Commanders executive who said all this stuff when he thought he was on a date, got one of his producers to basically say he's losing his mind. He thinks he's like a political force. And I've talked about this in our world a lot. People in our world, we are, to some degrees, locally famous, like I am, to nationally famous, like Stephen A. Smith or Pat McAfee are. But the broader world does not know who he is.
Right.
Ethel in Wisconsin doesn't know who he is. doesn't watch Knicks games, and doesn't care who the greatest basketball player is, and isn't having that discussion every day of her life. So he has big platforms, but not the type that I think he thinks he has. But whatever, the Democrats don't have a better, currently better option than him. And he also knows he's reached a point where it's all about any level of attention. And he's doing this. And so whatever. What I thought was funny was BetOnline put out odds on who his running mate would be if he were to indeed run for president. Would you like to hear the odds-on favorites for this?
Sure. Like, I have a choice.
Who do you think the lowest odds are to be his running mate? Who do you think that is?
I mean, Shannon?
Yes, 25-1, Shannon Sharp. Charles Barkley and Mad Dog Russo are at 33-1. So is Skip Bayless, although I doubt Skip Bayless comes out of retirement to run for president, albeit he's probably like, please pick me. I'd like to be the person to run for vice president. He's got Chris Cuomo and Colin Cowherd at 40-1. And then we finally get to some political people. Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, 50-1. Sean Hannity, aforementioned Fox News host, who he goes on TV with all the time, 50-1. D. Wade, Kyrie Irving, Colin Kaepernick, 100-1. House Speaker or former House Speaker Hakeem Jeffries, 250-1. Michelle Obama, 250-1. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, 500-1. Although Gavin Newsom's going, I'm running for president.
Yeah,
he
isn't. Yeah, exactly.
And he's not my running mate. I can promise you that. Hillary Clinton, 500-1. That would be something. It's my governor, Wes Moore, 500-1. So those are his options currently. I would go with it would be off the board. And actually, Stephen A., his ego might be so big, he might not run with anybody. He's the president and the vice president.
I mean, he could just be one of those. He could just be one of those people that, like, whoever he beats, he brings on. You know, like I think that'd probably be something that he does. I'm not one to say nothing is possible anymore after the last 12 years of politics. So like, I'm not gonna like deny this. I also know when you get him into a room of people, he can out debate anybody. So like, how far he can take that, I don't know. There is no limit on that as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. When he goes into full Stephen A. Smith talking about Kim Jong-un, I just don't know if it's going to fly.
What are you talking about? Look at how Trump debates. I mean, like, no one says anything about how he says what he says either. Like, whether you love it or you hate it, he debates a certain way too, and it got him all the way through to 2 presidencies. So I don't know about that one, Chief. I disagree with you.
I want to know what the motto is.
Yeah, I want to know.
Like, so we've had MAGA. What was Obama's?
Change. It was always just change, right?
Or
hope. I don't know. I don't remember what it was.
Why am I forgetting? Something about hope or something.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was. Everybody's got a motto. What's his going to be?
I have no idea. And I don't want to guess.
Trade Julius Randle? What in the world's it going to be?
Make the Knicks great again? I don't know.
Make the Knicks great again. Yeah. All right. I wish you luck with that. I don't think he's serious. I think he's gotten to the point in his career where anything for attention. You know, that, and it feels very weird and desperate, but whatever.
Sure.
Good luck with that. And I'll hear you out in the primary because I haven't heard another Democrat that would get my vote at this point. So
why would you not?
Good luck with that.
Why would you not go full ESPN and play nice with somebody that would get a lot of audience? Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee. He would get a big he'd get a big voter base. They might not like each other, but he'd get a big voter base between those two.
I know who it won't be. Max Kellerman. It will not.
That's correct.
It will
yes.
not be Max.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Pray about your show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.